Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing Michael Chabon's young adult novel Summerland. I'll talk very briefly about the author, go into a spoiler-free overview of the plot, talk about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish off by talking about what I'm going to be reading for next time. Michael Chabon is an author of pretty well renown at this point in his career. He wrote, probably still best known for The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which won him a bunch of awards in the early 2000s. The only other book of his that I've read is The Yiddish Policeman's Union, which was kind of an alternate history of Alaska, kind of examining Jewish identity and things of that nature. So he's kind of known for not sticking to any kind of one genre and kind of working in a bunch of different areas. This is, to my knowledge, the only one of his YA books, his young adult books. I think it's the only young adult book he's published. It came out in the early 2000s, I think 2002. What it's about is about a young boy named Ethan Field who has recently moved to the West Coast. I believe he moved to the state of Washington, where he plays baseball that he doesn't really, not really super into it, but he plays it because his dad, I think, wants him to play it. And the book is basically him going on an adventure with a couple of his teammates into another world, a la, if you've read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, if you've read Harry Potter, it's kind of similar to that, where a bunch of young people go off and adventuring into another world. And Ethan, his journey is to save the world from being destroyed by kind of a trickster spirit who goes by the name of Coyote, as well as to save his father's life from Coyote. And that's pretty much the book, without giving any spoilers away. He meets people along the way, and he has different adventures. So I think what I like the most about the book, and the kind of thing that I would recommend it to people, is it's very well written. I think Chabon has a command of language that's kind of clear throughout the book. He also has a command of plotting. I think the book does a good job of taking different areas of mythology and kind of tall tales and kind of bringing those things in together and intertwining them into the narrative. There's a section of the book where Ethan and his friends encounter essentially tall tales of the West. They don't come out and say Paul Bunyan and John Henry, but they kind of meet these characters. And I thought that was kind of one of the most enjoyable parts of the book. I think it does a good job of representation in the sense that it takes characters who are of Native American indigenous people, and it takes people from all kind of walks of life as far as nationality, ethnicity, and they're all kind of in there and represented. I think there may not be any Asian or Asian American characters, but other than that, I think Ethan's friend Jennifer, I believe, is biracial, Native American, and Caucasian. There's an old scout who is an African American character. There is a Cuban American character. So I think it does a good job of that from that standpoint. Genders are also represented in that Ethan's kind of main confidant and kind of his best friend, so to speak, in the book, Jennifer, is kind of his equal in every way. So it definitely, I think, is ahead of its time in that aspect of things as far as putting people on equal playing fields, which I noticed and I appreciated in the book. Some things that I didn't care for as much. The book is very long. The book is very, very long. It's 500 pages. One of the questions I asked myself as I was reading this book was, who is this book for? Because in some ways it's a young adult book, but there's also kind of language. There's also mentions of alcohol. There's also mentions of brothels at one point. So to me, I was trying to figure that out. It feels to me more of a book that's written for an adult to read to a child than it is for a child to hear from an adult, if that makes sense. There's a lot of digressions, as I've kind of alluded to, and the book in some ways feels overstuffed. There's a lot of different magical creatures and magical lands, and the book does feel at times like a slog of getting through it. I think it ends relatively well, and he does a good job of kind of tying all the loose ends off, which I thought was nice. But overall, that to me was the biggest problem with it, was the pacing, and it just kind of felt like there's not a lot of forward momentum. It does definitely feel like the characters go from one place to another place, to another place, to another place, to another place. That's not to say that there's not a lot of imagination in kind of designing those people and places, but after a while, some of the characters started to kind of blend together, and the differences of the different kind of magical creature races were, I think, less and less special because it does feel kind of overstuffed. So if you are a fan of young adult literature, if you're a fan of baseball, one of the main themes of the book that I didn't really touch on was the way that baseball can bring, it's a universal sport essentially in all these worlds, and it's a game that kind of everyone recognizes as a way to resolve conflicts or resolve disputes. And so I thought that that was kind of interesting, understanding it as kind of a constant through all these worlds, and no matter when and where you are, it's a game kind of everybody understands. So I thought there was kind of a nice touch there. There's a little bit of touch of Pan's Labyrinth. If you like the movie Pan's Labyrinth, I got a little bit of touch of that and a little bit of touch of American Gods by Neil Gaiman. So if you like those things, I would recommend it. So to me, it's like if you're a 17 or 18-year-old who really loves baseball and kind of enjoy young adult stuff, but are not kind of turned off by kind of a huge, relatively large book, I shouldn't say huge, it's 500 pages, with kind of all these mythological different things from different mythologies all around the world kind of come into one, then you may want to check this out. Like I said, those were kind of my issues with it, were more just it kind of felt over time like it was a slog. I would have probably preferred a book that was maybe 350, 400 pages to the 500-page book that I got. There's some touches in there that I enjoyed, but there are definitely points in the book where I wish we'd kind of skipped ahead a little bit faster. So that's Summerland by Michael Chabon. And next time I'm going to be reading Disaster Falls by Stefan. I believe his last name is pronounced Gerson. So until next time, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already, and feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section below. If you have read Summerland or any other Michael Chabon books, please feel free to comment. Until next time, bye.